Today's lesson is going to be how to make a ear warmer. You've got a button at the back, you can see it under my hair there, so it is adjustable, and I think this is pretty cool, perfect for those cooler days, keep your ears warm. So I hope you guys enjoy the tutorial. We start with a slip knot, holding your short pieces in your left hand between your middle finger and your thumb. Wrapping the yarn around your index finger or your pointy finger. Wrap it around twice. Then holding your yarn down between these two fingers. We want to pull the left one over the right one and drop it down off our finger. Grabbing our long bit again, just pulling down a little bit to get a bit of tension here. And then letting go of that piece. Wrap it around our finger again, holding down the bottom, grabbing our left piece and pulling it over and off and pushing up. We now have our slip knot. And when we are working with two yarns, we obviously have to go up hook size. So for this yarn, for one strand, it recommends a 4mm hook. So I've gone up to a 6.5mm hook, which is a K size. So I've jumped quite a few. You can use a little bit smaller if you like, or you can use bigger, just what you feel comfortable with. But if you try to use the one that's recommended for your hook, it's going to be very difficult. So working two yarns at once, you just hold it in the normal way, and if they twist, like they twist around each other, like so, it doesn't matter, because it is being worked as one. If you're working the same colour, you won't even notice it. If you're working two different colours, what is going to happen is you are going to end up with like a mottled effect. It's going to be all different colours, and it actually looks quite pretty. So just doing your chain stitch as normal, we go in under both yarns. And you're just treating that as one piece. And we want to make a chain that is long enough to go around our head. So I'm going to make one big enough to go around Mrs. Foamy's head. So where your ear warmer is going to sit is obviously around the top of your head and then around your ears, so you want it to fit that part of your head. And it's just loosely around there. I haven't pulled it tight or anything, so you just want to have it just nice and loose around the head. And what we're going to do is single crochet into the second chain from the hook. This is not counted as our first. Here is our first and here is our second. So going into there and working a single crochet. And then working along, and what we want to do is, mine's about 10. So I'm going to do 10 and show you what we need. So I've marked the back of the head. Poor Mrs. Foamy, she's getting acupuncture. So you're getting what we've single crocheted across, and that is going to be the center at the back of your head. So I'm just going to pop that on the pin. Of course you'll be measuring this on your own head, don't put pins in. And then it's going to come up and around, and you want it to stop before your ear, because the bigger part of the head warmer, you want it to go over your ears, so you want it to be nice and thick over your ears. So I might even pull out 2 of those stitches. There we go. So the thick bit is going to start just before the ear. And I'll show you on one that I made earlier. And this is what is going to be this part, these chains here, these single crochets here, is that part there, and then it starts to get wider, see? So what happens is this bit is at the back of our head, like so, and then it comes around. This is quite hard to do on camera. So then it comes around and covers our ears. So Mrs. Foamy's ear, where is she? Her ears are here. So it's being covered by this thick part. So you want it to cover your ears, keep them nice and toasty and warm. So this little piece is where your skinny bit, this part, on our ear warmer is. So mine's about 2 inches long. So you want it to start before where your ear starts. And now we want to count how many stitches that we did. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this little chain bit here is 10. So I was right, it was 10. I actually put in a few more. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and the last one is 10. And that is always going to stay 10 on this piece. So go to the other end of your chain, and I've actually made it shorter so I don't have to crochet as much, because this is only for the demo. And this end we want to count 10 stitches again. So counting 10 chains, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. We want to grab a stitch marker and put it into that number 10 chain. So what happens is we crochet 10 here. This is the main part of our thick part of our head warmer, the widest part, and then here's the other side that comes around the back of the head. So we've got our stitch marker so that when we come across here we don't forget that we have to change stitches. So after we have our first part finished, like there, these were single crochets, the rest of the middle part of the beanie is going to be working half double crochets. So that's wrapping our yarn, going into the chain, yarning over, pulling up a loop. Now we actually have, looks like we have 6 loops on our hook, but there's only 3, remember, because this double here is counted as one string. So that's 1, 2 and 3. So we're yarning over, grabbing both pieces of yarn and then pulling through all of those loops. So yarning over again, going into your chain, yarning over both of those strands. We have 3 on our hook. You're just going to count those as 1 each. Yarning over, pulling through all 3. And we want to do this doing a half double all the way across until we come to our stitch marker. And this headband can be adjustable for any size head, as you can see, because your initial chain is as long as it needs to be to go around your head. So you can make this for a little one, or you can make it for an adult, and anywhere in between, of course. Okay, so just keep going with half doubles until we get to our stitch marker. Alright, so my next chain is my stitch marker, so I'm just going to take that out so it's easier to work with. And then in our next stitch we want to work a single crochet because we're going to mirror image this side, so we want to copy this end piece that we did here. So single crocheting into the next chain, and in every single chain until we get to the end. And this way it is going to match the other end of our piece of work here. So just single crochet all the way to the end of the chain. So now we are going to chain up 1 and spinning our work. Now what we want to do is, grabbing our stitch marker, count across 10. So this is our first stitch here. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're only going to count across how many you had before. Remember, I've got 10, you might have a different number. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and it is where your last single crochet is. Putting your stitch marker into there. So if you had to do 13 single crochets here, you're going to count across 13. And grabbing your stitch marker and go back to the other end and do the same thing. So that first one here is our first stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Putting your stitch marker into there. And we're going to leave these stitch markers in there because it is going to show you where you need to stop doing your half double crochet in the middle piece. I mean, if you're really good at what you do, you might not need stitch markers. But trust me, if you're not paying attention, like when you're watching TV, you'll do it wrong. So our next row, we want to slip stitch across these stitches that we have on our end piece. So we've already done this one, we have a chain stitch there. We're going to go into the next stitch, yarning over, and then pulling the left through to the right. And don't work it really tight, otherwise it's going to pucker up. Just work it nice and even across there. Because we want to get over to where our stitch marker is. So here's our stitch marker. We want to slip stitch into that stitch. So you can either remove your stitch marker and then put it back in, or just go through the stitch. Now we want to start our half double crochets. And this is going to be, oh there we go, he's moved to the back. So we've slip stitched into our stitch marker. Now we're going to do a half double crochet into, making sure I didn't catch the stitch marker then, half double crochet all the way across, and we are going to be working under both loops here. So it's going into the stitch, and you'll have both loops. You'll actually have 4 loops on the top, but remember this is counted as 1 and that's counted as 1. So yeah, completing our stitches, and you want to work across until you get to your next stitch marker. Ugh, that was a mouthful. Your next stitch marker. So my stitch marker is my next stitch, so I know that's the beginning of my end stitches here. So I'm going to slip stitch into that stitch. And I'm going to leave my stitch marker in there, going into the next stitch with a slip stitch. And we're going to slip stitch all the way until we get to the end. And I'm going to leave my stitch markers where they are for the rest of the project, and that will remind you that you need to change your stitches. Making sure we still have 10, so that's, or whatever your number is, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I need to do one more, and that goes into your turning chain. So chaining 1 and turning your work. So in this row we want to do a single crochet, so it's slip on one row, single crochet onto the next. And what this does is, because we slip stitch one row, it doesn't make it grow as fast as this side. So this row, this middle piece is going to grow quite fast. This piece won't, so that will give you this part here. See how that hasn't grown as much as that part. That part's really wide and this part isn't. So now we are going to single crochet, not into the slip stitch, but into the single crochet from the previous row. Now if you can't see it, the slip stitches are on the top here, and they're really hard to get into here, so we're not going to use those. We are going to go down into the stitch here. So the slip stitches are up there in that little space. I'm going to go below that into the single crochet down there. So we're still working a single crochet. So going down in there, and you're actually working in between the single crochet stitches, because there's one and there's the other one, and we're actually going in between just there, working our single crochet and making sure we only go up to where our stitch marker is. Okay, so my stitch marker is there, so I have this one. So making sure you grab 2 yarns, see that we grabbed only one. And then the next stitch is there. My stitch marker's in there. So single crocheting into that one. Make sure we have our amount we need. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 is our chaining turning chain. God, my teeth aren't even right today. So now we have to half double crochet across until we get to our stitch marker again. So I'm back to my stitch marker. We want to single crochet into the stitch below the slip stitch, remember? So whatever we did at the beginning here, we single crocheted, we do it the same at the other end. It's a little bit, not difficult, just different to work down into that stitch below the slip stitch. And then making sure we've got the right amount of stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then chaining 1. So we did single crochets on this row, didn't we? So now our next row is going to be our slip stitch row. And my teeth are definitely not in properly. On my tongue, something's going on. We repeat or alternate each row. So that row was single crochet, the next row is going to be a slip stitch, the next row will be single crochet, next row a slip stitch. So this row is our slip stitch row because the previous row was a single crochet. So go into the next stitch and make a slip stitch. Remember, don't make it too tight. And then slip stitch all the way across until we get to our stitch marker. If we slip stitch too tight, this is going to pucker up like that, and we don't want that. We want it to lay nice and flat. And I was talking there, look at that, put in a single crochet when I'm supposed to be doing a slip stitch. So where's that stitch marker? Here he is. So does that mean we've got enough? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, no, 9. And you should be able to tell by looking at the stitches from the previous row as well. But if you're just a beginner, maybe you might not be able to tell just quite yet, but that's okay. It all comes with practice, trust me. So now we've got up to our stitch marker, we want to start doing our half double crochets again. And of course, until we get to our stitch marker. So now we need to slip stitch across. And if you can't remember what you need to do, go back. See what we did here. We did slip stitches on the top. Or look at your previous row. We did single crochets across there. So we know that the next one must be a slip stitch. So we just want to slip stitch until we get to the end of the row. And we want to repeat alternating those two rows until we have this wide enough.